1 hour this time. Like,
No, it won't be. I won't talk as much as Richie.
I hope so.
Yeah, I've also
I know you gotta go home. That's right. Everyone has to go home at this point. All right, and we're rolling. Okay, that's great because actually this is the second interview for Mega Black, and Mega Black EX is now this sub-famous called, and now because I'm restricted to 10 minutes now, because the last time I reviewed Richie, it talked about at least about 50 minutes or so. I'm pretty sure you can watch that somewhere else. But I'm here with Aljin and Abella for today, and how are we doing today so far?
Great, mate. Really, really good. Great to be here. It's my home city, Melbourne. Great to be with my people. This is very much where I feel most at home. So it's wonderful just to even be in this space. If I wasn't here as part of this booth, I'd be here as a fan.
That's just surprising. I wasn't even aware that you were even you even lived in Melbourne throughout through your childhood. That's actually pretty interesting to note about that. Now, as a part of your acting career, I was also read up upon this. I wondered that what really got you into theatre in the first place?
I wasn't really exposed to the theatre until I studied it. So I moved to Sydney for 3 years to study at NIDA, which is a prestigious performing arts school based out in Kensington there. Before that, I was doing a lot of film and television, so a lot of local content shot here in Melbourne. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s was like the golden age of locally produced children's television. Every production house was open, and I was performing in like an end of the year sort of annual amateur musical theatre production, and there was an agent in the audience, and they saw me and they saw my work, and they somehow got in contact with my parents and said, hey, I'd like to represent Aljin, and send him out to auditions and everything. So that's how I sort of fell into the world of professional acting. Before that, it was very much a passion. It was something that I knew that I really wanted to do and be involved with, but I had no idea how to do that. And then, so that was from 13 to 18, and it wasn't until 18 that I got exposed to the theatre in a very, very big way. And then after that, after I graduated, was when I really sort of just did anything and everything.
Is there any sort of like professional mindset that kind of changes back and forth when you're doing between acting and doing theatre work, particularly speaking?
It's always, they're different mediums, you know? Like screen is not necessarily, it's very accessible, you know, and especially now with streaming content, and it's global, you know, like anyone can watch almost anything that you do if you put it on film. But it's not necessarily the actor's medium in the sense that so many people have an influence in what makes the final product. So you've got your director and your producer, you've got your editor, and even, you know, your sort of network has to say into what they want to see. With stage, the actor is very exposed. You're very naked. It's not, of course, just you. It takes a village to put on any theatrical live stage show, including, you know, a wonderful crew, big or small. But a lot of the happenings of each moment you feel very much in control of, and you know, especially getting that live feedback from the audience is something that's quite unique to the stage, and yeah, it's just they're just as challenging. They're just as challenging as each other, and just as fulfilling.
You think it's because like the rate of failure between like doing actual acting and like doing like theatre work kind of really raises the stakes when you're just like having sort of anxiety or whatnot? Would you say that much?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to go again necessarily if you know, stuff up on stage. You know, no one wants to be seeing someone do it and they say, oh, sorry, can we go again? Let's pretend you didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and then it's like acting is not an easy gig. You know, it has its challenges, and it's not the most secure job in the world. Of course, you have to love it. I wouldn't tell anyone to get into this job if you're sort of looking for no financial stability or anything like that. You have to have a passion. You have to love this as a career choice. And yeah, it can play. It can play tricks on your mind and everything. You have to be resilient. You have to have a thick skin. You have to be, you have to be willing to accept no, and to get kicked back from, gigs that don't go your way. But that's also what makes it really beautiful.
But like at the same time, it's almost as if that there is a, I don't know the best way to put it, but it's just more like you're willing to put in the skill, you're willing to put in as much compassion to it, and it's like you really have to drive it in. You really have to drive in your energy just to get into really acting. And I could definitely see this because I see a lot of TV shows, and it's just like a lot of the direction. You see like these people who are like, Amy, it's particularly, I want to bring an example like Amy Adams. She's a really good actor in a lot of great movies, but the work that she's given, and particularly the DC Extended Universe, was not great. And it's what people get criticized for, is the material that they work for is not very good. So how do you kind of like deflect that kind of feedback regarding like the kind of work that you would previously done for, but you get people get criticizing for your work that you get underwritten to some extent?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I like to think that, I've never sort of experienced something like that to that extent, I know that when we were shooting, Jungle Fury, it was owned by Disney at the time, and so we were right smack bang in the middle of what they refer to now as the Disney era of Power Rangers. And it had been owned by Saban for like the longest time. And when Disney took over and made all their creative choices and going in a sort of slightly different direction, I know that at least from the very, very little that I spent online, sort of getting the feedback of how people felt about Power Rangers in general, that people were a little bit, sort of disheartened, to say the least, about the direction in which the show was going in. I mean, we sort of got a sense of that, but you can't really concentrate on that as an actor. You kind of just have to do your job, and you have to trust that what you're doing in collaboration with your other actors, in collaboration with your director and your writers and everything, which we were very lucky to have, fantastic team. That you're trying to put out the best content. I don't think there's any actor in the world out there who wants to do a bad job for their audience. I mean, what is the point, Yeah. So you're trying to do the best job that you can, and it's ironic because, I know that from the people that I've met here and the people that I've met over the years, that Jungle Fury, despite being part of the Disney area, despite being, part of that whole change of direction, is looked upon, pretty fondly.
Oh yeah.
And in a very positive light. So we're very lucky.
I'll say that because it's just mostly because a lot of the stuff is beyond your control, would you say the least?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. Like the actor, especially in the medium of film and television, you have to understand is a very, very small cog in a very large machine. Of course, if you're talking about if you're a celebrity Hollywood megastar, you have a lot more creative control. But on a show like Power Rangers, which has a very strong franchise, and lots of people have lots of input, you do the best that you can. And I think that's certainly what people did in my experience of this particular season, of this particular show.
Walk me through the process of what exactly landed you the role as Theo Martin in Jungle Fury.
Ask the question again, sorry.
Walk me through the process of what landed you the role, particularly for Theo Martin in Jungle Fury.
Yeah, right, that's interesting. There was this is really testing my memory now, because Jungle Fury is at least 16 years old. And there was a season of, and I'm going to get this wrong, but there was a season of Power Rangers a few years prior to that I went in for. I want to say it's no, I can't even remember, but
allow me to fill in the blanks for you.
Yeah.
Operation Overdrive.
No,
or
before that.
Mystic Force.
Was it Mystic Force? I'm not sure if it was Mystic Force. It would have been Mystic Force.
What was the theme that
Jason Chan played this role?
Jason Chan? I think Ninja Storm.
Yeah, I think it was Ninja Storm or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
So I went in for Jason Chan's character. That was my first sort of exposure into the audition process of Power Rangers. And then I think we were in negotiations of me playing that role that eventually went to Jason. But I was also trying to negotiate something here locally in Australia, and so the things just didn't match as far as the scheduling goes. So that role went to Jason, and then it wasn't until a few years later when the auditions for Power Rangers Jungle Fury were happening that I fell back into this world. The audition process was not too dissimilar from any sort of acting audition that you would experience as an actor working for screen. You know, you'd go in, you'd meet your casting director, you'd have your sort of audition sides prior to that. You're learning your lines, you put down your scene. Then a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks goes by before you hear anything. In my particular case, you know, it was some positive feedback. They wanted to see me again. And then I think there were one or two other auditions before hearing that I'd actually got the role, and the panel just got a little bit bigger. I met our American executive producers who came in and saw my audition live. And then, just you know, I think I was watching I was here part of watching the Melbourne International Film Festival, and then got a phone call from my agent saying, "Hey, you're going to New Zealand. You got this role in Power Rangers," which was super exciting for me.
Like literally, like in between the movies, you were watching this, and then the phone starts ringing off. And did this have happened to them in a silent theater? Did everyone hear it?
No, certainly not. I think the film had finished. I was on break between films, and then I took the call outside the forum. And I was with a friend of mine who's also another actor. And I just couldn't believe it. I was really, you know, I grew up on this show. You know, this was part of my childhood. Mighty Morphin was very much part of my childhood. When it came out, I was like 11 or 12. There was nothing on TV like it. We were all running around, jumping up and down, pretending to be Power Rangers, and to know that 10 years later that I actually get to be part of this community, part of this franchise, was a dream come true.
That was so interesting. There's also, as soon as you got auditions, they usually have like a table read. And I remember from the last interview I did with Rishi, I mentioned this. He told me about this. Originally, his character was supposed to be American. And when they went to the table read, they basically changed the whole entire minds about whether they wanted to change his accent to American to Australian.
Yep.
And I was curious about if there was any situation between like table reads that they wanted to change anything surrounding your character specifically.
The great thing about us, we certainly had table reads. There weren't any sort of like last minute or, you know, sort of like creative choices that were that drastic. We were really lucky in the sense that we got to work in our production office with our American writers, with our New Zealand directors, and we had, with our Japanese stunt team led by Koichi Sakamoto, we had like 4 weeks or so to really develop and get screen fit and also really develop these characters. And we were given quite a bit of free rein, you know.
Yeah.
We had a sense of the character, but I think through our rehearsal process and our sort of chemistry that we had with each other, with Jason and Anna, and part of that sort of core team before it expanded, we really got to develop these characters together and have our own input, which reflected with what the final product was, and especially as the series continued on.
Oh yes, that was wonderful. I also remember specifically around 2008, they also had the Writers Guild strike at the time. There was a writer, particularly named Judd Lin, and he penned it under a secretive name. I can't remember what it was specifically. Apparently, it was according to the fan curated source, about 2 episodes specifically. Now, my curiosity is that were you specifically given like rewrites before like you started filming during that Pacific period when the strikes were going on?
It's funny that you asked that question, because the last time, exactly right, the last time we went through a Guild Writers strike was all those years ago during Jungle Fury, and we're literally going through one right now, you know, in 2023. So it's quite ironic to be asked that question. Look, it's a difficult situation, you know, and I can't in good confidence, you know, sit here and talk like in great detail about what was happening behind the scenes, and I wouldn't feel right in doing so because you know.
Mostly NDAs and just like this.
It's not even just that. It's like it's like I said. I'm just. It affected a lot of people, you know, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And it was a very difficult time for a lot of people. Certainly for us, it made it tricky, very challenging to be able to continue shooting and to complete the show as it was intended. Whilst all of this was going on.
Yeah.
I know that there was a lot of chatter about it online and things like that, and you know, a lot of analysis ever since then. But for us, it was really important to sort of just band together, you know, try to support our writers, but also find that fine line, walk that fine line, that balance between doing that and also trying to complete this show, which really meant a lot to us. So that was what our focus was on.
Yeah, just very understandable. I could definitely sympathise with that, and I really respect that you really wanted to try to not talk as much as possible about, particularly on that area of the end, because I definitely understand like a lot of stuff behind the scenes. It's just like, no, you really can't go into that, but I definitely understand for a good reason, because there's probably going to be a lot of, it's just go batshit insane. It's just like, no, just never going to really break out. There's a lot of people, because there's huge people like constantly speculating, people constantly trying to raise up theories about like behind the scenes drama and whatnot. You see this, and it's almost like every single time that someone tries to write this up, whether it's on Ranger Board or even social media nowadays, the message boards were always constantly big. But I wasn't really active on the internet until like maybe 2013 or so. Well, yeah, because obviously I was way too young, but you know, I wasn't really active in any communities because one, budget problems, two, you don't even have a job because you're only like in high school, so fuck that. I didn't even give me a hoot about that.
It's probably better for your development as well.
Oh, definitely.
At such a young age. I wouldn't recommend anyone too young.
I know a lot of people got corrupted at a young age, but that was pretty much everyone at my high school. They all got into different things. Oh, goodness. Wow. That's the only thing I feel like saying is that after Power Rangers, when you're like casting in different specific roles, particularly in the acting scene, did anyone recognize you particularly from Jungle Fury?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I'm primarily, you know, based here in Australia. I've been very lucky to be able to travel overseas and work there as well. But especially in a sort of local theatre content, you know, I'm based here in the country. Occasionally you will get the person who comes out of like a musical that you've just done and will pull you aside and say, hey, I really enjoyed your work as so-and-so, but I'm also a big fan of Power Rangers Jungle Fury, and that means a lot. I mean, you know, to this day, I've not been part of a show. I've been a part of a lot of special shows that mean a great deal to my heart, but this show, this franchise, and its fandom, its dedicated fandom, is unlike anything that I've ever been fortunate enough to be a part of. It's you know, there are no words to sort of fully describe just what it feels like to be an actor and to know that your work has meant a great deal to people, not just locally, but like globally.
Yeah.
And it's always really special for me to have that conversation with anyone who's willing to give their time and share their story as to, you know, what watching Jungle Fury or what even just like Power Rangers means to them. It means a lot to me. You know, it means a lot to me as a person growing up when I was a kid, and even more so now, being part of its legacy.
Yeah, it really hits it right into your heart because when you realize that so many people are coming up to you, and I see that, and I realize that this definitely feels a lot like home. Just thinking about it, because Australia doesn't really have much of a Power Rangers community going around. we don't have that many actors, and I heard a lot of stories. It's like fans not the lack of thereof any fans. Most of the people are very much observant, and there's also like even people as well that may have recognized you outside of Power Rangers as well, particularly even today. And I was observing your tables, looking Terry, some, not all of them, but some of the conversations I was looking through as I was browsing through the table, and that was probably one of the greatest highlights to see whenever a Ranger actor particularly comes into Australia. If it's like in this particular setting that you come up much more closer and personally, because it just feels that there's much more a larger connection. You're given more time compared to something like the autograph signings back over there.
Yeah.
I remember specifically there are a few actors, some of the Disney actors got actor that played Dustin, I couldn't remember his name exactly, but he only got about 3 autographs for the whole day, and it was tucked all the way back. And I think it was mostly due to the cost prohibitivance, or most people didn't even really recognize them. So it's like very hard, and I understand like why Ranger conventions are particularly set up at this point, because it's just like there's a hub for all of you guys to basically connect with a lot of people that grew up with you. People that really like you, want to meet you personally, and it shows that there's a little bit of a market here. But even though that it's so marginalised that very few people, particularly in Melbourne, to say the least, like Tokusatsu in general is like very, very small. We don't even get almost anything at all. The only way we get stuff is by importing, and we can't even ask like companies to release movies or TV shows because like the demand is maybe like 10 people. That's it. It's like, oh, there's 10 people. We want this movie from Japan.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you gonna get it? Tough shit. You're not gonna get anything. And I reckon I also feel like that your theatre work has also amplified your presence here specifically as well. How would you like respond to that specifically if they don't know anything about Power Rangers but they only recognise you for your theatre work?
I mean, look, the audience in whatever form, whether it's a live audience or people watching at home, is the lifeblood of any production. It's the lifeblood of, the actor, the performer. I've always said that, it doesn't take much to be an actor. All you need is a story to tell and an audience to tell it to. So it doesn't matter if you're performing on set for something that's going to be released many months down the track. It doesn't matter if you're performing to 2,000 seater. It doesn't matter if you're performing to just your parents at home. That's the core essence of being a storyteller. What you speak about is an issue very close to my heart. I've seen the ebbs and flows of of locally produced content. When it was sort of like in its heyday, and there were lots of things going on, to a lot of things, and being purchased cheaply overseas and to be released en masse, where it's kind of detrimental to our business and our creativity. To now that sort of changing as well, like even with streaming services and everything, putting in more funding, and politics is a hand in everything, and the way we perceive things as a society. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a performer. I'm an actor. The arts is incredibly important to me. It is not an extracurricular thing where people are just getting dressed up in silly costumes and having a laugh. The arts is everywhere. It holds up a mirror to our society and tries to sort of bring out the core essence of what the human experience is like, and to communicate that effectively so that we can be a little bit more in touch with each other, that is even more so over the past, few years when we were so disconnected from each other. So what am I trying to say there? I'm trying to say support your local, support your local community of artists. Go out there, see a theatre, watch locally produced content. There's so much of it out there. And the more you support, the more you'll see, the more you'll see yourself being reflected on screen. Back when I started, there weren't too many faces like ours, you know, represented on screen or on stage. You know, I've been doing this professionally for 25 years, and that's certainly changed. And I've worked, you know, fairly consistently over that, and it's not been an easy gig. But again, that's part of the resiliency and part of the support that I've received, and the confidence that other people have given, that have instilled in me to sort of say, hey, come and do this, come and be on this stage, come and play the Blue Power Ranger. And yeah, it's been an honor.
That's a very good way to cap it off, and I greatly appreciate the words that you have submitted, that you've expressed to our viewers back at home. And I also really resigned to that. I greatly appreciate. Thank you for that so much. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
No worries. Unfortunately, he's my friend over there is wanted me to cap off, so he's like, I really want to ask more and go for another few hours.
We'll go part 2 on this interview. You know, at the next con.
Yeah, definitely the next con.
Yeah.
Which I'll definitely try to get get that organised.
Sure,
We'll
be
see you
very
there.
happy to do it.
Thank you very much, Aljin, for your
No
time.
worries. Thank you so much, and thanks for everyone for watching.
Thank you. Now, before we cap off, is there any sort of socials that anyone can follow you on?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's why I love conventions so much, is because I'm a very in-person guy. I like to chat with people in person. But yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's just at Aljin, Aljin. If people want to follow me there and then send a message, I will do my absolute best to try to get back to people. But know that even if I don't, that I really do appreciate you. And if our paths ever crossed in person, please don't hesitate to come and say hello. Even if it's just to say hello and have a chat. Always really happy to do that.
Thank you very much. And this is Mega Black with Megabits EX. Thank you all for watching. That was just great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy, for taking your time outside. And I'm done. I'm so done.
Oh, mic drop. It's done.
27 minutes.
Hey, there you go. It was half, about a third of the time.
Well done.